You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Wepa, what up, one and all? It's your host, Al Mega, para que tú sepa. What's going on? Happy Tuesday. Today, folks, we have an ill guest. There's an awesome independent publisher called TKO Studios. TKO Presents has been busting it out. Amazing titles by amazing creators. And this man cannot be left behind, of course. He has an amazing new project from TKO Presents. It's called Djeliya. Amazing Afrofuturistic type folklores and all that good stuff. My man is hailing all the way from the south coast of France. It is my pleasure to introduce the one and only Juni Ba. Woo! What's up, kiddo? How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm fired up. It's 10 a.m. for me. It's evening for you over there, but I'm ready. I'm pumped. I'm pumped up. How you doing? What's popping, brother?
I'm good. I'm working most of the time.
Working from home, I hope.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
one of the perks of the job.
Gotcha. All right, so a little bit about you, man. So, I say you on the south coast of France. Where exactly are you in France right now? What town, city? I don't know how you guys call it. Province?
So I'm in Montpellier, France, which is southeast, I guess. Extremely sunny and hot and I mean, I'm a West African, but I don't like the heat, so like I'm surviving the best I can.
Brother, I tell people the same thing here in Florida. I'd be like, I'm Puerto Rican. I'd be, don't let my brown skin fool you because I do not like the heat. I miss my up north seasons. Please bring them back. I need some winter in my life, please, just a little bit. With that, so have you always been in France? Give us a little bit background of yourself. I mean, have you always been in France? Were you raised there? I mean, what's going on?
I was born in Senegal, and I grew up there until I was 19. Then I moved here initially for art school, and then I ended up staying because, I mean, you get job opportunity after job opportunity, and then you get you make friends, and you decide that actually you're gonna stay.
Okay.
Which is mostly the reason why I'm still living with like the sun scorching my face, but that's like my friends.
Excellent. And you said you went there for studies. I mean, what type of studies were you taking?
So wait, the way the French system works, I went to an art school where they first give you the first year where you have to learn basically a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And then you choose your specialty, and I went into illustration.
Okay.
For 3 years, which is where I mean, I always knew I was gonna draw, and I always knew that there was gonna be a big focus on comics.
Yeah.
But that's basically why they took me in the first place, because like I still remember the day I went the first time with my portfolio to show it to the teachers to see if they were gonna take me in, and I remember one of the teachers making an offhand comment about how the only thing that was worthwhile was my comic book stuff.
Really? Wow.
The rest didn't impress at all. So like, but they did take me. So yeah, 3 years of that.
Okay. Was there any cool teachers there that are well known art folks, or even someone in the French comic community? No.
No, they're not, which is in some ways really convenient for me, because one of them was especially into comic books.
Okay.
And so we would often have discussions about it. Like I would show up every week with like the new comics that I bought during the weekend and just show it to him. And especially because now that I was in France, there was all the access that I didn't have before, where I could buy loads of French and Belgian comics that I didn't have, and the American comics, and I would just show it to him and get feedback on what he thought was working and what wasn't.
Wait a minute there. You're telling me that where you grew up originally in Senegal, they didn't have access to comics that easily? Or anything like that?
Not
Okay.
many. The main issue was like the big paradox for me is like listening to my aunt who grew up in Senegal as well in the 60s,
Okay.
telling me that she used to read Thor and Silver Surfer
Oh
that
wow.
she would buy in like grocery shops and stuff. But I couldn't get my hands on a Marvel comic book until I moved to France and bought it for myself.
Wait, why didn't you ask your aunt? Let me get your copy.
Well, she's in Geneva now, but
Okay.
so she could have. But like basically, the idea is that I Senegal the way I knew it, you had a few French comics, a tiny few American ones,
Okay.
but it was mostly rare. Like to give you an idea, the one time I found an actual hardcover comic book from America, it
Hmm.
was a copy of Wanted. I think it was
Ooh,
Mark
the
Millar
Mark
doing it.
Millar. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And like I got it mostly because it was an American comic and I had so few of those and I just wanted to look at what was inside. I didn't like it very much, but
Okay.
yeah, but like I took it for the novelty of it.
Gotcha.
That's how important it was for me.
Did you like the movie at least?
Well, that's the thing. Originally, I saw the movie before I read
Oh,
the
okay.
book, and
Okay.
the movie is completely different. And yeah, I liked it well enough. I guess it was fun. I saw it with my brother when we were kids.
So let me ask you here. Obviously, always the key question. But what was that first comic that you laid eyes on that kind of helped you say, "I want to do this for the rest of my life. I love this." What's your key character, or what was
Um,
that comic book? Obviously, it's not Wanted.
let's see. I think it's more of a process.
Okay.
Like the oldest I have, what is it? The oldest I have is this.
The Le Gris Gris de Nyokolo. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's. I'm gonna try and find a picture of the main character so you get an idea of the style. It looks like this.
Okay. Oh man, that's
So
typical French comics. Yeah, I see
yeah,
those a lot. From
yeah.
Cinefilm, I believe is the company, something like that. Cinegraphics.
So that one is called Spirou, and it's a very old character that's from Belgium, and I basically grew up on those first,
Okay.
and a bunch of the usual Asterix, Tintin, all those guys.
Of course, of
The
course.
Spirou was kind of a favorite of mine, and then it's not a comic book character, but Sonic the Hedgehog was a big influence for some reason.
Oh my gosh, my daughter loves Sonic. We have the whole IDW run. We got pieces of the Archie run. She has the actual first cartridge for the
Nice.
Sega Master System Sonic. That a shout
Like
out to Dodgy that he gifted my daughter. That when I told him she loves Sonic, he goes, "I got something for her."
So like I discovered him through the games like Dreamcast and
Oh,
GameCube.
Dreamcast, man!
Yeah.
I got the American and the Japanese still. And check this out. Look what I have for my Dreamcast.
My God, I didn't know they even made a game of it.
Yeah, this is all Japanese. This is a first-person shooter spawn game.
Okay.
Pretty cool. And I still got them. My daughter wants to take them from me, but I'm like, no. Those are mine. Let me keep this safe because this is like one of my treasures. I'm a spawn guy. All right. Okay. So,
Yeah. So Sonic the Hedgehog mostly I think for the design of it.
okay.
The example I always use is there was a 2D animated intro for like Sonic CD that I
Ah,
discovered in
okay.
a remastered version on the GameCube, and I would just play it over and over again because I was so obsessed with like the design and the animation of it. And then manga was a big thing. Like I read mostly exclusively manga when I was a teenager
Oh,
because
wow.
again,
Okay.
access. There were like one spinning rack of manga in the one library I had when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So everything else you would have to read on the internet, and that was I think the biggest influence.
Okay.
So there was Shaman King, Full Metal Alchemist, Naruto, that kind of thing. And then when I was around 17, 18, I discovered Hellboy.
Oh, man. The master himself, Magnolia.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, bro.
Which kind of like for wanted, I had seen the movie before, like
Okay.
years before. And then one day I'm just on the internet and I see an image and I recognize the silhouette of the guy and I'm like, that was a comic book initially. Like let me get some of that. And to give you an idea of how complicated it was, there was no no easy access to it on the internet the way manga was.
Gotcha.
Uh, because American companies have a big problem with that. But anyway, the um, the solution that I had was that because I was in Senegal, I had to ask my stepmom, who was a employed by the EU,
Okay.
to ask her dad, who was living in Belgium, to buy the book for me so that he could send it to us through a special delivery system used by the people of the EU, so that we could get the book for Christmas.
Wow, geez, a mission just to
For
get a
one copy.
comic book. My gosh. Hey man, but kudos on you for doing the mission and getting what you
Yeah,
want. You know,
yeah,
that's amazing. So, so how is it you living in France and studying the art? Did that influence the type of stories you're telling nowadays? Because we're gonna get into Djeliya in a second. I want to bring up the PowerPoint, but before we get into that though, and showing off how awesome the book looks, is like, did living where you live now influence you in any way to tell this story?
yeah. I mean, on the outside, obviously, because you get access to so many different new books, and the teachers have much more knowledge than you, so they keep recommending new things.
Okay.
But there's also the fact that when I was in Senegal, I wasn't necessarily paying much attention to the culture in terms of observing it. You're just living in it, so you're not really paying attention
Okay.
to, you're in it already. It doesn't have any special value necessarily for you to like observe or analyze that much. And then when I moved to France, I started like looking at it from the outside and trying to figure out what kind of stories I wanted to do. And the big moment for me, the one I always point to, is the moment I went back after my first year in France. I went back to Senegal, and I went to a art shop, uh, really small cupboard size thing with like statues and the kind of stuff that they make for tourists. And I just thought like I know this stuff, and Japanese creators have been making manga based on their own folklore for like years, and most of the stuff that I like the most is based on that. Like Shaman King is really based on a lot of different folklore mixed together.
Hmm.
Naruto and Dragon Ball is basically just Japanese people using Japanese culture. And I just figured, like, why not do something of the same vein, using West African folklore and doing a sort of sci-fi fantasy kind of adventure book? And that was just because, like, I figured I had never seen it,
Okay.
and I just wanted to make it because I thought it would be cool.
Hmm.
And then you go on the internet and you meet with other African creators, and you start to realize that there's a growing number of us now.
Oh
Like my
yes.
entire generation, like there were comic book creators before us, but my entire generation has so many of us now that like we had a chat at the very beginning with the people of Kugali. It's a Nigerian company who publishes African creators. And
Okay.
when we first reunited, one of the discussions we had amongst people from Senegal, you had people from Nigeria, Ghana, and all kinds of other countries, and we all knew Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
Like
Nice.
that's kind of the vibe, I guess. Like we all grew up with the same influences, and
Yes.
then we all had the same idea of how about using that but applying it to our our
Of
world.
folklore. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it, man. Because I actually have a friend out here, I believe he's in Georgia, that for years he's been working on books. He's had successful crowdfunding campaigns, but based on African folklore and all that stuff. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah,
So I'm glad that it keeps coming to the forefront now. So that way, because again, Americans are eating it up because we're tired of what the big two is doing here, and we're looking for some cool stuff, right?
yeah.
So, let me add this right here real quick because shout out to TKO and Eric for hooking us up today to chit chat a bit about Djeliya. Yeah, man. So let's take a quick look, right? I mean, great looking cover, bro.
Thanks.
So this is all you, the art, the cover art, interiors,
Yeah.
and all. This is you 100% front to back, lettering, flats.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I think it's the design wasn't by me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a inside job from TKO.
Okay.
But yeah, the I did the story art, coloring, lettering, like I basically the book was going to get made anyway
Yeah,
because I struggled to get it made, and at one point I was just like, the very reason why you managed to get interest in your work before was that you were already making it all by yourself anyway. So when I contacted TKO, it was kind of a last ditch effort before I just decided to make it for myself.
gotcha.
So yeah, I think when I contacted them, half of it was already made, or at least half of it was sketched.
Gotcha. Oh wow, really? Look at you, man. There you go. All right, so let me ask you about Jeliya. Is there any particular folk tale, that this is based on?
Oula. Um, so an obvious one is the Epic of Sundiata Keita, which I wouldn't call it a folk tale. I suppose
Hmm.
it works in that way in some forms, but it's more of a foundational text for the identity of West Africa and Mali, especially.
Okay.
It's about the creator of the Mali Empire,
Oh.
and it inspired. Like it mostly gave me basis for. I approached it the same way I approach almost all fantasy style or folklore style storytelling, which is I wanted to do something that comments on the tropes in it.
Hmm.
So the story of a guy who becomes who's a prince, who becomes a king, who unifies an entire kingdom and everything. It's very clean. It's almost like it's the criticism that George R. R. Martin has of the Lord of the Rings, with the Aragorn being the perfect king, who's
Yeah.
really nice and really sweet, and everything is perfect because the king is a good guy. And I
Hmm.
sort of wanted to do a story where I wanted to go I wanted to go beyond this notion, and especially because of the historical context of where Black people are today. There's a lot of discussions about we always like to prop up the kings and queens of the past,
Yes.
but always in a way that I found a little troubling because it's almost ahistorical in some ways because they're not treated as people who also had faults. They are
Oh, of
treated
course.
as perfect beings who the evil Europeans killed, and like the place wasn't perfect before.
No,
So
exactly. I mean, listen, history is written by the winners, right? So
yeah,
unless we're on the winning side, but even if we are, we will never know the full truth or extent of it.
yeah, and like so, my one of my goals was I want to play with this archetype of the perfect king and show that it's royalty itself is not the perfect system. It has plenty of problems, and I also wanted to do a story that sort of props up not the kings and queens of the past, but the random normal people as well. Because this entire notion that we descend from kings, I'm like, I also probably descend from a shepherd, and I don't see why he's not as interesting or as
Exactly.
important to history as the king.
Hey, I'm from PR, and I know I have both Spaniard and Taino history. So I could either been somebody on a ship mopping the deck, or I could or I could have been a Taino Indian over there, farming the ground.
Yeah,
Who knows? I mean, in our
yeah,
history,
and
but it's
he's
great.
just as much just as important as the guy who was
Hmm.
being the captain of the ship.
Of course.
So I guess the idea for me was that I wanted to do a fun adventure story, but also something that sort of comments on what I was observing of how we approach our history and
Ah,
the way we treat stories, especially like what kind of stories do we tell and why, and what kind of effect do they have on us.
hmm.
So the whole book is about the power of stories and how you can shape an entire nation's identity with a story, and what happens if that story is not entirely true.
Mm. Mm. I mean, and look at this imagery here. Look at this coloring, and I do see some Magnolia stuff in here,
Yeah,
kind of influence. I see that. This is great. Explain to us a little bit about this page and the process behind this, because this is dope. You got this what looks like some floating island somewhere, rocks
yeah.
everywhere. I mean, this is fire. What's
The
this?
so the basic idea for the book is that before the beginning of it, the Earth has been shattered in pieces by a wizard who then um, went back into his ivory tower and hasn't been seen in years.
Okay.
And the main characters are essentially trying to rebuild the kingdom that they lost because of those events. And the main character, especially Awa, is very sure of the rightful value of her king and how great her kingdom was.
Okay.
So I wanted to have a story where she gets to see what happens, like what needed to be done for her kingdom to be as glorious as it was, and she gets to visit a city that didn't have the luck that her nation had.
Okay.
So, like, part of it is just because I wanted to draw floating rocks.
It looks cool, man. I mean, I'm with you. It looks dope.
Yeah, because I mean, on a thematic level, I guess you could say it's effective to have the Earth literally shattered into pieces because it really
Yeah.
translates this idea that people are secluded from each other and the world is literally broken.
Mm-hmm.
But the main drive for me was I want to draw floating rocks and cities in the sky, and like I wanted to have fun with that kind of imagery because I find it really epic and kind of sad at the same time.
Gotcha.
And like that's also why the sky is red. Like this is a city that was destroyed,
Mm.
and the sky remains red for the most of the story until it resolves in the end, and it becomes blue again.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
like that was a choice for that as well. So the architecture was mostly based on um like I had a few different styles of buildings that I liked, and then I
Yeah.
just freestyled the whole thing. It's not based on anything specific.
Okay.
I wanted it to be big, and I wanted to have the luxury of like draw ruins as much as I wanted. The one
Okay.
piece that's taken specifically from something that I actually lived with is the I don't even know how you call it, the central lane in the middle of it where
Right
the
here. Yeah.
yeah, that one is pulled directly from a street in Senegal.
Oh, really? There's a street like this?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's those. Well, it's not a street. It's like there's the road on either side, but it's
yeah.
those ways where the water is supposed to go.
Oh, the waterways type joint. Yeah.
Yeah, waterways.
Okay.
Thank you. The like we had one that we drove in front of pretty often,
Hmm.
and I just liked looking in it because you had the graffiti on the walls and everything, but there was also the like when I was a kid, we had this rumor that there was an alligator in it, which
Really?
obviously wasn't true, but like when you're a kid, you believe anything. So it stuck to me.
If they tell you that here in Florida, then you better believe it's true. My father-in-law was visiting here over the course of the weekend, and he stood in West Palm. He was about to go into this lake that the neighbor started screaming at him. "What are you doing?" He goes, "What do you mean? I'm about to get wet." He goes, "Bro, don't you see? Look, 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 look in the middle. You could see nothing but two eyeballs, just like
Oh my
looking at him." He's
god.
like, "Oh man, thank you." So yeah, they tell you that in Florida. But let me ask you, since you did mention Awa, is
Yeah.
Awa based on any particular person in literature or in real life that inspired you?
Um, in literature, not necessarily. Kind of.
Okay.
Some of it is based on Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Okay.
She's a Nigerian writer, and she like I like her both for her writing, but also all the different conferences and all the talks that she does. She's a very articulate person,
Gotcha.
and really helped me understand things in different ways and learn things. Like she had a similar approach of looking at her own folklore in ways, or at least her own culture in ways that don't look at it as perfect.
Okay.
And she's a very noble and very poised woman. So there was a bit of her. There was a lot of myself because Awa is also very much based on like the two main characters are both aspects of me, and Awa
Okay.
is very much the whole. I want to try and make things better, but I also tend to sort of get in my own way and being too stubborn and not necessarily aware that you might be wrong about things.
Hmm.
Um, and the last piece that I realized, I was with my 12-year-old sister last week, and I realized that a lot of the character was based on her as well.
Oh,
Like I didn't know. Like that's the funny thing. Like you just make your character the way you envision them, and then
okay.
I don't know. Like something about my sister this week was just very like her, and I was like, damn. Like I understand now where it came from.
Gotcha. She's driven you so crazy. She ingrained herself in your brain, and you
Yeah.
just unwittingly just, oh man, I was my sister. Oh snap. And you know what? I want to give you another thing here. Just looking at this design here, little things
Yeah,
that you do like this. That's Kirby-ish too. Are you
yeah,
a Jack Kirby guy?
yeah.
He goes,
Extremely.
yeah.
Extremely.
Nice. So explain this scenery here. Is this kind of the tech that they have?
Yeah. So the tech. How do I explain this? Basically, I tried to be as little futuristic as I could, which is why I don't like when people say that it's Afrofuturism. I don't. It's a very American thing, and it's not at all what I was going for, especially coming from an African perspective.
Yes.
And as far as the tech goes, it's me using um, the technology exactly the way it was in the 90s and early 2000s in Senegal,
Okay.
which is why the screens are so big and the wires are so thick, and like the table in front of her with all the buttons and everything, that is a bit more futuristic, but the
Yeah.
rest is very like I guess I just tried to make the kind of stuff that I was envisioning when I was a kid and playing with my toys, because you're
Okay.
using what you have around you, and what I had around me was the very old family computer and all that stuff, and you mix it with what you see in movies, so holograms and all those kinds of things. Then her costume is like she has a VR set that I mixed with a headdress,
Yeah. I see that.
uh, which is more from the south of Africa. But anyway, the dress itself and all the necklaces and everything, like it's me pulling from different references I had of like African fashion and everything.
Excellent. Interesting. That this is a beautiful image. This is also poster worthy right here. I like the coloring
Yeah,
on it. And look at this. I mean, there's also action like a mother in this one, huh? I mean, explain this. What's going on here? And I love the dude. Your usage of panels here, just that. When you
yeah.
cut it, the cut, this, that, everything. I mean, explain this process here because this is fire.
Um, so that one I wanted chaotic on purpose. Um, the plot of the first chapter is basically that you have Mansour. Mansour was supposed to be the new king,
Okay.
and his kingdom was destroyed along with everything else. And now he's being pushed by Awa to sort of become the new great king, the way they've been told that kings that kings are supposed to be, and he's really not up to the challenge.
Hmm.
So the first chapter is him attempting to get the favors of a criminal warlord, and to do that he has to kill his rival, and so he
Mm.
ends up fighting the soldiers that work for him. And that entire sequence was like, for most of the book, I tried to make the action look cool, but I also tried to show that it's actual violence. People get hurt
Yes.
and people die, and it's not like it leaves you with mental and physical scars, and
Gotcha.
it's
You're
not.
not glorifying the violence
Yeah,
at
essentially.
all. Yeah,
Yeah. So the opening. This is the first action scene of the book, so I still wanted to open with something that really like slaps you in the face.
it does.
And,
Good
and
job.
then I slap you again with the reveal of how violent actually this is, and how Mansour himself is glorifying this moment, thinking I'm the hero of the story, I'm the cool guy, and by the end of it, he's realizing that actually violence actually hurts people.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But this looks phenomenal against the coloring, the panel usage. Because yeah, who wants square panels nowadays and have six to a page, right? I mean, when you could do something as awesome as this. Because I mean, your graphic novel is not a lightweight, right? It's about 168 pages, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real oomph for your dollar right there. I love it. Now, we're talking about Djeliya and all that's currently available via TKO Studios, right? That you could go to the website, right there, tkopresents.com. Check that out. Now, I want to know what's up in the future for you, Janae. I mean, are you planning to bring on any more African folk tales or something along those lines?
Yes and no.
Because this guy's
Like
so cryptic. He's like, I don't know. What can I
the
tease?
okay, well, it's actually kind of complicated, because well, not complicated, but like I realize that it's kind of part of what I do anyway.
Hmm.
And Djeliya was the me consciously thinking, let's do something based on West African
Okay.
folklores. But the next thing I'm working on is mixing all kinds of things, and it has West African elements in it, but it's
Okay.
not a West African thing.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's just a fantasy thing that is influenced by a whole lot of different sources, and but the West African part is always going to be there, I think.
Okay.
And
Which is good, definitely, man. Represent.
yeah,
Absolutely.
because like the thing too is that I'm not I want to avoid sort of fetishizing West African stuff,
Okay.
and I want it to be treated just like any source of inspiration.
Of course.
In the sense that when you like, again, the big example is Tolkien and all his influence. All the Lord of the Rings influences come from European, especially Germanic
Hmm.
influences. No one ever calls it a European folklore fantasy.
True. True.
They
True.
just call
Yeah.
it fantasy, and that's kind of what I want to do with West Africa, like West African influences. They're there because that's where I come from, and they're always going to be there because that's part of me. But they're on the same level as everything else, and I want them to be treated the same as everything else.
I love it, man, and you're absolutely right. I'm kind of digging that way of thought. It's so true. I mean, it's not this. It's normal. Just it just happens to have a
Yeah.
couple of influences. I like that. I like that from you, bud. That's awesome. So right now, we're talking all about all this work, but for fun, what are you doing right now? What are you reading for fun? Is there anything you're reading, checking out that keeps your mind occupied away from work for a couple of hours?
I don't know how to stay away from work. Every kind of everything I do has an impact on what I like. I will be reading a book or watching a movie, and it will still harken back to like giving me ideas. And
So you're one of those like me. Put it on pause. I'll be right back. Grab a pen and paper. Hold on, I got an idea. Okay, now I
yeah,
can go back to it.
yeah, that's exactly that. Like I have a big issue on that front, and I manage it well enough. But yeah, so comic wise, I read the first issue of the many death of Lila Star.
Yeah, let's start. Yeah, Boom Studios is killing it right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
and I read just the first issue, and I said, okay, I'm going to wait for the trade because I need to read everything at once. But like the first
Yes.
issue I read was so good, and especially since we're talking folklore, like there's this whole the book is great because it's a really good example of what I was talking about, of just using the folklore as a
Mm.
normal thing, not fetishizing it, not putting a spotlight, like, look how exotic this is. It's just there. And it's just Indian folklore put in a very normal, mundane way that actually gives it way more humanity. And I just love the way it's done. And of course, the story is great. Like, just the first issue alone, the way it's written is so poetic and so effective.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I am extremely impressed by the way it's done. So there's this one. Movie wise, I'm waiting for Green Knight. It's still not out in France,
Okay.
and I guess I'm a little tired by the movie landscape of now. I guess like France is a bit different, but France has a lack of diversity in terms of subject matters.
Okay.
I mean, they have a lack of diversity in all kinds of areas, but anyway, the the American side of things, though, I'm mostly tired of all the corporate aspect of it. Like, there's a lot of movies that don't feel like stories that someone is telling you. They feel like a product that a company is selling you.
It's a product, absolutely. That's
Yeah,
that's every single superhero movie right now. It's just a product, and the way that the comics change to reflect the movies, as opposed to it being the original source material. The
yeah,
comics, the movie should change to be like the comic, but whatever. That's an
yeah.
argument for another day.
And even as Nora, the other action movies, and just there's a weird lack of indie movies in the landscape. I find like
Yeah.
they're harder. They still exist, but they're harder to find. And that's mostly where my interest is going now because the more bigger stuff absorbs my soul. Like it's like what are they called again? The Harry Potter monsters that swallow your soul, like in Harry Potter
Oh,
movies.
okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what it feels like to watch corporate big budget movies for me now. So my baby that I hope I'm gonna love is Green Knight because it feels at least to be made with a certain level of artistic interest, I guess.
Yes. Yes. I get you.
So like I'm really excited for it.
I get you. So my recommendation is check out Geek Fest Film Fest. There's a whole bunch of independent filmmakers, movies that vary from 10 minutes all the way up to a half hour at times.
Nice.
Good stuff, a variety of product. These are the people that we're going to see on the big screen, the real big
Mm.
screen one day, producing a major film because they are so talented. So if you love indie, Geek Fest Film Fest, for real, check it out. That's my big
Okay.
homie, Billo. You can see us next week at MegaCon. Yay! Yo, all right, so we got this. We could pick this up at TKO. I mean, have you seen it at the shop yourself yet? How are the shops in France? I want to know because obviously I haven't traveled outside the US. I mean, do you have shops in France and is this book on a shelf? Have you had it in
Uh,
your hands yet?
we have a bunch of them. The book is in English so far, so you would only find in shops made by, well, shops that sell books in English.
Okay.
I don't know that there are many. There is a bookshop here, like, yeah, a library bookshop, yeah, bookshop.
Okay.
I get confused with all the words.
No
There is a
worries.
bookshop here that two of my friends run, and it's a
Okay.
English bookshop, and so they have copies of the book. We did a signing and everything.
Oh, nice. How did you feel when you first saw your book up on display like that? And and your first
Um,
signing. I mean, again, you're all new to this, right? I mean, this is
yeah,
actually your first project. So how did you feel, man? Like to see your product exist and see it on a stand, and then you're being invited to sign. How did that
yeah.
feel as a creator?
It's it's kind of funny because I mean, it stays in your mind for a long time, and then on your screen for a long time, and then you get the actual physical thing. But
Yeah.
the biggest part for me was seeing it in people's hands,
Mm,
and I get a kick mostly out of reading the reactions people have.
okay.
Uh, Mostly because, like, again, the more I observe why I like stories, the more I realize that it's because I like it when a story feels like it's someone talking to me. So that's why I make stories too, I guess. It's because I'm trying to talk as well. So it's really good to have someone talk back and tell you what they thought of the stuff that you made.
Oh, absolutely. To have a real constructive
Yeah.
conversation, not like some people do on Twitter. Have a
Yeah,
constructive conversation, please.
and beyond just the criticism of beyond just reviews, because it's not reviews that I'm interested in. It's more so people's ideas and reactions and what kind of thoughts the book gave them, what kind of emotions, that type of stuff. That's where the interest is for me.
Oh, understood. Okay, you want to understand the person's journey after reading your story.
Yeah, yeah.
Understood. I mean,
I
that's
like.
great. All right, so before we go, I always like to ask a creator like yourself, based on your journey, what's a great piece of advice you could give an up and coming creator?
Um, I would say make it yourself.
Gotcha.
um, because the way Djeliya happened was that it was gonna happen anyway. Because after I graduated, my teachers basically said we don't know if anyone is gonna want to read something like this.
Oh,
I
wow.
started pitching it to publishers, and they said we don't know if anyone is gonna want to read something like this. But I started posting my own stories on the internet, and it started gaining interest. And the very reason why Jili has been published by TKO was because when I sent my first email, they responded with, "We usually don't accept offers, but we've been following your work for a while. We want to know what you have to offer."
Ooh.
And that would not have happened if I had listened to the naysayers, let's say, and just tried and never made anything. So, like, what saved me is that I kept making shorter stuff that I put on the internet for people to read, and
Okay.
it generated enough interest that publishers would then look at it and go, there's potential there. So yeah, my advice would be make it yourself, and always have the door open for opportunities for bigger things, but never be stifled or slowed down by the lack of interest that you may encounter. Make the stuff for yourself, and you have a bigger chance of finding an audience this way.
Fantastic. That's great advice, and I like that. It's true. It's even like with when they do Kickstarters, for example. I like those
Yeah.
folks that basically the project is done, and the Kickstarter will only pay for the shipping. You know what I mean? If anything. So I like that. I'm gonna get my product because Juni, let me tell you, Janae, I'm waiting for a book. People know the story. Rob Liefeld. Rob, where's my book? It's been almost 10 years and I'm still waiting. He's offered me refunds. I'm like, no, I've been waiting this long. I need my book. I'm a bad boy. Okay, so Juni, I mean, everybody know right now, Janae, Twitter, right? Janae_Ba. Now, is this where you were putting up those stories and art that people were checking out? The Juni Ba website?
I had a Gumroad. Like I took the stories out since then, but
okay.
The website is a page that I don't really use much anymore. The Twitter is where most of my activity is. The Instagram as well, which is the same name.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's where you're most likely to find me.
Excellent. And folks, please visit TKOpresents.com. Product Djeliya. Get your copy today. It's a gorgeous book. 168 pages of comic book goodness. That's definitely going to take you on an epic adventure because it is an epic fantasy story with awesome pieces of folklore and fantasy and sci-fi and magic. I mean, this is everything. I love it. Brother, you're uber talented. I wish you nothing but continued success. I can't wait to see what else you come up with since you're already teasing other little things that you're doing. But first and foremost, folks, pick up the book. Please visit TKO Presents, all right? Please follow Janae right there on Twitter, on Instagram, Janae_Ba, and just keep up to date with everything because this is one of these future creators that we're going to see do amazing things on his journey. I really can't wait. Janae, thank you. Thanks so much, bro, for just taking time out of your day from the south coast of France while I'm over here in hot-ass Orlando, Florida. So thank you again, brother. It's been fun. Huh?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And folks, you know what to do. Again, follow the homie. And again, thanks for tuning in and watching. Show the love, subscribe, follow. You know what to do. With that, I'm out. Mega. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Much love. Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit ComicCrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at UndercoverCapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.